morning. Thank you for inviting me to share a bit about COVID, the vaccine especially. And I just want to acknowledge that it's a privilege and to share more about the COVID vaccine and to throw some light on what is this COVID vaccine and why should we be concerned about it. So, uh, in this talk, I will deal with three main areas. Firstly, I would just talk about the COVID-19 vaccine. Then, I will discuss about some concerns we have about the vaccine, and I'll end by having some Christian reflection. Now, the pandemic has been with us for more than a year, and it's a very difficult topic to talk about because as the vaccine has been around for less than a few months. Okay, and the roll up is mainly in December. So a lot of information is still not available, and the things are changing every day. Okay, every day I have new information about the vaccine, about the vaccination, about the effects. But to put it into perspective, we always have been having pandemics. Okay, I mean there's no we do not have much record about the pandemic in China or India, but we do know that in the western region, the Babylon flu is about 1200 BC. Then there's the plague of Athens that killed more than close to about 100,000 people. The Antioch Antonine plague in the second century kills about 5 million people. So we all the pandemics have caused a lot of death and suffering. The plague of Justinian talks about 15 million. And of course, the most famous, the Black Death, close to half or even three quarter, some estimate, of the population of Europe. How about modern times? Recent time, we talk about the influenza uh, pandemic, which often is compared to our present pandemic, but it's actually different. Okay, in 1918 to 1920, about 50 million people lost their lives. The SARS one is the one in more recent memory, and it kills about 774 deaths with 8,000 cases. 2009, the avian flu, about 151,000 to 575,000 deaths. 2014, not 2024, okay, to 2016, the Ebola pandemic, more than 11,000 people died. Actually, most of us are not aware of it. And until recently, the MERS 2016, okay, the Middle East respiratory syndrome is also a form of COVID, caused about 858 deaths. So watching what is happening in the world today, we know that up to February, 2nd of February this year, there are about 103.87 million cases of COVID, or what is called SARS-CoV-2 virus, the RNA virus. And there are deaths of about 2.25 million people. Bringing back to closer to home, the statistics on the 3rd of February was that we have about 226,000 cases, 912 cases in Malaysia, and death was about 809. So it's something that is affecting us. And we know that the country, Malaysia, the Ministry of Health and the government has been doing some things. Okay, and in a way, it is the attempts are quite successful in a way, okay, especially in the first wave, but unfortunately in the second and third wave, things goes haywire. And we know that uh, we have actually accumulated a lot of experience and information in the last 1 year. And we actually having data coming up to tell us that the mortality in Malaysia, those people who are at high risk, okay, the risk is about 0.4% or 4% in every 1,000 case will die. Okay, so the mortality is more in male, and we know that people with underlying health condition are more prone, and people who are in the age group. I think age is actually decided as a major factor in determine who will survive and who will die. So we find that people who are 60 to 69 are in the major high risk group. So we have identified who are the high risk group. So we can talk about, I will just go straight to the vaccine. Okay, and vaccination is not new to us. Okay, I mean, because of our excellent childhood vaccination program. Okay, we have been quite successful until recently, or in our child health vaccination program. And the vaccination actually is not something very old. Okay, it was in 1796 that English doctor called Edward Jenner. I'm sure we heard about him. Notice that among milkmaids, okay, who have cowpox are immune to smallpox, which is a pandemic at that time. So what he did was he took a 8-year-old gardener's son and infected, okay, the child with cowpox. And then what he did was that he exposed this child to a person with smallpox. Now, if he did the same thing today, we will put him in prison for child abuse, human experimentation. But in those days, it was acceptable. And from that experience, well, luckily the boy survived. We have the the whole idea of vaccination, of exposing people to the weakened or similar virus or bacteria, and people developing immunity. And as of today, as of 28th of January, there's a rollout of the COVID vaccine. Okay, and on the end of January, 52 days. Okay, it means in November, December, people have been using the vaccine, and at that time, end of last month, more than 75 million doses has been administered in 10 countries. So there is more and more uh, information about the COVID vaccine since it was given to people. Okay, so what are this COVID vaccine? Basically, there are four types. Okay, four types of COVID vaccine. One is a viral vaccine, or what we usually call inactivated or attenuated. Now, this is not new. Okay, a lot of vaccine like mumps, measles, rubella, okay, are actually are parts, either components of the uh, antigen, okay, or components of the virus or bacteria, or weakened. So, like viral vaccine is, that means it's a not new concept. Okay, viral particles, okay, also is not new in the sense that hepatitis B, pneumococcus are all use part of the component of the bacteria so that the body develops immunity against them. So we have protein-based virus vaccine. Now, what is new is this the last, second, and third, the third and fourth, the viral vector vaccine, which is using a viral vector, I will explain later, and the nucleic acid vaccine, or what is usually commonly known as the RNA vaccine. So basically, what are these? Okay, it all depends very much on the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which as you see, it has four proteins. Okay, and then there's a capsule, and the RNA is a RNA. It's not a DNA that's inside that. So the vaccine, the four different type of vaccine uses different part. Okay, in the nucleic acid vaccine, they use parts of the DNA or RNA, or rather than make it, they don't actually use the virus. They actually created the similar. That's the results of genome. Okay, nowadays we actually know the genome. One of the unspoken history in the development of vaccine. Okay, and one day when all this is over, somebody will write a history, and we need to recognize that when the virus first get attention in November, and by January 2020, the Chinese scientists has actually sequenced the whole RNA virus. And what is impressive is that they share it with the whole world. They share the whole genome sequence. So by the time it becomes a problem in January 2020, scientists all over the world know the exact genome. And that is why this couple who are in biotech, okay, Pfizer biotech, okay, the biotech is company is actually a research company of husband and wife. So after receiving the genome of the virus, this couple is able to create the vaccine within 2 days. Okay, but they are a research company, so they actually pair up for Pfizer, because Pfizer has the ability to do it. That means one of the key factor in the vaccine development is the sharing of information among scientists, among communities. So we know exactly what is the genome, and we can actually recreate the RNA genome. Okay, the viral vector is, and then the proteins are usually the particles, protein particles, and more important, we want to pay attention to the spike glycoprotein, which is the main focus. Okay, we either develop antibodies against, antibodies are all developed against this one. Okay, so moving on, the virus vaccine are the one that we are used to that. Okay, is we weaken the virus, or we inactivate the virus. Weaken the virus means we expose it until the virus becomes very weak and doesn't cause the infection, or we inactivate the virus. Okay, and then the vaccine will produce this weaken or inactivate the virus. The body, the macrophage, will ingest it and will produce antibodies. So this is the familiar ground, the virus vaccine. The protein-based vaccine is also familiar ground. Okay, here what they do is they break up the spike protein. Remember I told you about the spike protein, and then this is used as a vaccine injected in the body. The macrophages, the B cells, the T cells, the plasma cells come into contact with it, the antigens, okay, the proteins, and they develop antibodies. So this is the protein-based vaccine. The viral vector vaccine is that either uh, they actually, the coronavirus genes, okay, they use one of the vector. That means one of the vector is like a carrier. Okay, they use a virus as a carrier, use another virus which is not dangerous as a carrier, and they insert the genome, okay, the genome of the RNA, the COVID RNA, into the virus, and then they infect, or the vaccine is actually the virus carrying the genome. So when the virus infect the cells, the cells begins to produce antibodies against the enclosed or the component RNA. So it's like a secret code, like a malware like that. Then you have the purely RNA or DNA virus vaccine. Okay, this is the one that we commonly talk about, Pfizer, Moderna, which is actually either they uh, create the genome, okay, and then we wrap the genome in a nanoparticle, which is made of ethylene glycol, okay, and then we inject it, and uh, this is absorbed or by the cells, and then the DNA start activating and produce viral protein, and the viral proteins is into the blood, and the body macrophages start creating antibodies. So that means we are actually putting the genome itself, the RNA. Okay, but you must realize that the RNA doesn't survive on its own. Okay, the RNA is destroyed within a few hours. So these are actually the four major components or major type of vaccine that we talk about. Okay, so we're gonna have some question and answer time, so we can actually think about this type. And but this is basically what the vaccines are. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about what are some of the concerns about this vaccine. Okay, these are talk about safety, efficacy, and effectiveness, side effect, the use of human cell lines, long-term immunity. How about the mutation variants that we are very concerned about? Human mutation, do we get mutated? Okay, or how about the mark of the beast? Okay, so firstly, we're going to talk about safety. Now, the vaccine so far, there are the reports of all the negative thing about the vaccine actually is flooding the social media. Okay, we have this recent report, okay, from Bloomberg that says that, oh, about uh, 23 people. Then later on, it turned at the number end up 33 people died after receiving the vaccination. But these are actually people over 85 years old. Most of them are 85. Okay, so and they have underlying uh, condition. They're elderly. They also have heart condition. They have diabetes and all that. So there was a bit of anxiety, but when they actually did the research, they will find that there's actually no link. You will find that a lot of these people will die anyway because of their age and all that. So even though they Norway choose to vaccinate this group first, okay, you find that in this group of people, about 45% die every day. So if you vaccinate this group of people of 85, 75, and 85 above, okay, most of them will die, but not because of the vaccine. So they find that there's actually no link. So what do I mean? We have been vaccinating uh, 40, 50 million people since the rollout of the vaccine under emergency approval. So are we seeing a lot of death? I mean, everybody is watching this post-vaccination surveillance. If there is actual reported, I don't think anybody will be hiding it. Okay? And CDC is the main one that is monitoring very closely. Okay, the FDA approve it, but the one who does the surveillance is actually CDC. The main thing that we have coming from CDC is allergic uh, or allergic reaction. Okay, some people do develop allergic reaction after the vaccine. Okay, and more important is that some people do develop anaphylactic shock. Okay, anaphylaxis is a life-threatening. It's a life-threatening allergic after vaccination. And the data we have from WHO is that for the vaccination, the COVID vaccine given so far, especially for Pfizer, which is people are watching very closely, and we have the most experience, is about 11.1 million, even per person per million. So 11.1 case per million. Okay, now, if you compare it to, say, influenza vaccine, it's 1 in 1 million. So the Pfizer is 11.1 million per million. Okay. If you give penicillin, the anaphylactic reaction is 1 in 5,000 dose. So that is in perspective. Okay. Now, you find that Singapore has rolled up the vaccine last month, and we have reported about 4 cases of anaphylaxis or severe allergic reaction per 155,000 dose so far. Okay, so it seems to be there, but we are talking about not large number. We are talking about 11.1 per million. Okay, so that is something to be aware about. Okay, that we do not have data for any major, aside from the anaphylactic shock, which is expected, but we do not have any information coming for the millions of people that's been of major vaccine associated uh, problems. Okay, nobody has died from the vaccine. Okay, there's one case of a doctor in Florida who after about a week after the vaccine have severe immune uh, thrombocytopenia, which is the immune type of low platelet count, and he died. But we are still investigating a case, and there's actually no data whether it's actually vaccine related or not. Okay. Now, how about efficacy and effectiveness? Now, don't look at this side. Look at this side. Okay. Efficacy. What's the difference between efficacy and effectiveness? When you read the papers, people talk about efficacy, about effectiveness. Efficacy is when the vaccine is given or was given in a very controlled condition, especially in research, phase 1 study, phase 2 study. Okay, this is actually very controlled. That means they are done in the hospital. The people are very monitored closely. They select the people who receive the vaccine. Okay, so that is efficacy. So when you find that the how effective, how efficacy is the results that you receive from phase 1 and phase 2 studies. That means under control. But when you go into real life, things are different because you are giving it to different people of different ages, with not pre-selected, with pre-existing condition, obesity, hypertension, different races. So you find that in real life is what we mean by effectiveness of a vaccine. Okay, efficacy is in controlled condition in real life, and that is what we are most interested in. Yeah, in the controlled condition, the efficacy may be good, but how would it work out in real life? And actually, there are data supporting that. It's not the vaccine just not thrown in like that. I mean, these are the data that's submitted to WHO. Okay, from Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Gamaleya. Sinopharm. So there are data. WHO is actually looking at the data of some of this. Okay, and I've sort of summarized in a table here of some of the major uh, uh, studies done and majors reported. Okay, you find that the efficacy, these are the efficacy, we do not actually have the effectiveness yet because the vaccine is still uh, out. Usually we begin to have effectiveness about 2 months after vaccine is given, after the second dose, and then up to 6 months, we monitor closely because then people will be exposed to the virus. Okay, so here we have the efficacy, and you find that efficacy is actually amazing. 95% for Pfizer, Moderna 94.1%. Remember, these are the RNA virus vaccine. Then the vector one, this is very recent, a few weeks, last week. We have Johnson and Johnson, or the Johnson and Johnson, I mean, the Janssen virus, which is 72%, 66%, 57%. Okay. AstraZeneca, also another vector vaccine. They have low dose and high dose. It's 90%, 62%, average about 70.4%, which is actually quite good. Okay, now this one came out a few days ago. Okay, the Sputnik 5, the Russian vaccine, which have an efficacy of 91.6%. Okay, so which is excellent. Okay, now we do not have that much information about the uh, Sinopharm, okay, which is a Chinese vaccine. Okay, we have instead a lot of information we get is actually from the press, from what they release to the press. So these are the, but then the technology is the standard one, the weakened virus. Okay, both the Sinovac and Sinopharm are weakened virus, so it's not new technology. So we have 79.93%, 86%, and then Sinovac or Coronavac is Brazil, 50.4%, Turkey, 91%, Indonesia, 65%. Then the Novavax, we actually do not have much data, except that this is the protein vaccine, and it seems to be quite good. You find that all the efficacies are good because the WHO says 50 and above is acceptable. In terms of reaction, safety, anaphylaxis is the main thing that we watch out for. You find that it's 11.1 per million. Okay, Moderna is 22.5 million. The others have not reported any serious side effect. I mean, normal side effect we will have is uh, injection, bit of fever, aches and pain. Okay, and are they published? Yes, they are. Okay, the this is New England Journal of Medicine. These are established peer review publication. So both the Pfizer and Moderna has been published. Okay, Janssen is actually going to be published the next few days. Okay, uh, AstraZeneca or the Oxford one has been published in Lancet. The uh, the Sputnik actually came out a few days ago on the 2nd, and then Sinovac phase 1 and 2 was actually published in November last year. Okay, they are just compiling the data for phase 3. So in a way, the data is actually there. Okay, the other issue that we face is how is the vaccine stored. Okay, the Pfizer the Pfizer vaccine needs to be stored at minus 70 degrees. Okay. Uh, that is you need very specialized storage. Okay, but you can keep it at 2 to 8 degrees. That's the normal freezer part of your fridge for up to 5 days. Okay, Moderna minus 20 degrees, but you can use you to 2 degrees up to 30 days. Okay, Jensen and Jensen is about 1 to 2 degrees. Okay, and you find that all the others actually is about 2 to 8 degrees. That means you can actually keep in the fridge or fridge bag, and it's quite useful because then you can reach a lot of people. Because we are not talking about immunizing people in the cities where they have all these freezer facilities. We're talking about taking up the vaccines to the people in the interior, where the people who are doing the vaccination have to go up the river in boats by walking, and they're carrying. So it's very hard to get to maintain the temperature. Okay, so that is something that we need to consider. Now, has there been any established immunization program? Yes, there is. I think Israel's immunization program is actually something that we are all looking at. The data that are coming up is excellent because they went ahead, they immunized almost about 80% of the population. Okay, and the population already have the second dose. Okay, the Israel government actually make a special deal with Pfizer that says that you give us all the vaccine and we will give you all the data, so it will be transparent. So that is will be the largest phase three trial in history, and you find that it does make a difference. After the first and second dose, the number of cases actually have come down. So that means the vaccine is working, the effectiveness is there. Okay. Here you find that yes, Brazil, Sinovac or CoronaVac has given us very effective data. Okay, but this is not peer review. This is actually what the company says. So we are actually waiting for them to release the effective data. About side effects, as I said, the side effects are not major except for anaphylaxis. Okay, I mean, as normal vaccine, you get fever, injection site, a bit of swelling, a bit of redness, body aches and pain, a bit of lethargy. Okay, but we have people coming up and say, "Oh, after the vaccination, I got a lot of problems and all that." Okay, I, I'm sure that is related. Is important. Okay, I'm not saying that you shouldn't but uh, we need to investigate all complaints and find that not all cases are actually due to the vaccine. How about use of human cell lines? Yeah, I mean, some people say that we shouldn't use the vaccine because it has been cultured or not it's not made from fetal cell lines. Okay, fetal cell line is that sometimes you need human cells, and they get it from aborted fetus. And this two cell line that's used, the HEK293 and the PCRC6, are actually from two legally aborted fetus. And they grew the cells from this fetal line, and you actually can keep the cell line growing forever. That's why they say cell lines are immortal. And these cell lines are useful because then you can test or cultivate the virus or your vaccine there. So mainly is actually the for the inactivated or particle type of vaccine. Even though the RNA vaccine does use the fetal cell line to test the effectiveness, okay, but you find that it's mainly AstraZeneca, CanSino, okay, Gamaleya, and Janssen who use the human cell lines. Well, you may say that the research is tainted, but if you look at the benefit that arise from the the these fetal cell lines, okay. So I won't go into detail. I know if you want to see my argument for using the Thomas Aquinas double effect, please check out my website or my YouTube channel. Okay. How about long-term immunity? We know that the after immunization, or okay, you may get up to now we have data up to about 3 months, and we find that the immunity lasts after 3 months after vaccination. We know that people who have been infected with COVID has immunity up to 6 months. Further than that, we have no data. So we do not know whether uh, long-term immunity, how long the immunity will last, how long the antibodies will last. Okay, whether you will need a booster shot or not. Okay, that is something that we are thinking about, especially when we're talking about the SARS COVID variants. Okay, you know the RNA virus is very versatile. Okay, and it will mutate. That's why the influenza vaccine. Yeah, we actually change our influenza vaccine every 6 months. It's because the RNA, the influenza virus mutates. Okay, we actually have the northern hemisphere influenza vaccine, southern hemisphere. Okay, so would it be? Yeah, we begin to see that have begun to have variants. Okay, in UK, you have heard about the UK variant, the South Africa variant. Okay, and you find that uh, so far we find the UK variant, most of the COVID vaccines are are effective against it, but some of the vaccines are not that effective against the South Africa one. But then the Pfizer and Moderna and AstraZeneca are actually are going ahead and researching on second generation COVID vaccine. So we may hear about a booster shot made from second generation vaccine that will be effective against the variant. And I believe that there will be always, this will go on, that the virus will mutate and then we will have to update the vaccine. How about human mutation? Will we grow? Will the virus incorporate into a DNA and then we becomes the mutants? Okay. Let me reassure you here and now that that will never happen. Okay, because the mRNA is a translator. Okay, that means it's just a set of information. It doesn't change the source code. Okay, the source code is actually the DNA. Okay, the source code for all creatures are the DNA. The mRNA that we use for the vaccine doesn't enter the DNA of the of humans at all. So there's no way it can mutate because the the mRNA is uh, engineered, okay, to not be incorporated into the human genome. So no, we are not going to get into X-Men and mutants nation. How about the mark of the beast? Okay, in Revelation chapter 13, verse 16 to 17, talk about the mark of the beast. Okay, and the people say that, oh, the vaccine is actually part a mark of the beast. But if you look at the context of Revelation, okay, it's talking about the mark on the right hand on the forehead, which is for buying and selling. So I don't know how it's associated with the uh, uh, virus vaccine. Okay, some people say that the word corona is equal to 666. In fact, this is such a big thing that fact check actually look at it and says that no, the you cannot give a microchip to tag you using a vaccine because there's no microchip that is so small. Okay, that's why people blame Bill Gates for creating this vaccine. In fact, some people accuse him of creating the COVID virus. so that there's no so there is actually the mark of the beast is more of a conspiracy theory. Okay, and one and thing we need to talk about is against misinformation. That we need to get the correct information to the correct person. Okay, if it's safe for me to get, for pregnant women to get a vaccine at this moment, WHO, okay, and the American Academy of Pediatrics, the ONG Society, and most countries says yes, it's safe. Okay, except certain areas in UK says pregnant women shouldn't get, breastfeeding women shouldn't get. Okay, now if you had COVID infection, do you need a vaccine? Yes, at this moment, we will recommend that you get a COVID vaccine. Okay, does the COVID vaccine prevent me from getting sick? Maybe, because it's not 100% effective. And you must know that it takes about 7 to 10, 15 days after your first injection before you get some immunity. So you may get infection before that. Okay. Can the vaccine make you sick with COVID? No. None of the vaccine have the uh, except for the attenuated weakened one. None of them are active. Okay. Is this is very important. After you get the vaccine, will you test positive? No. Okay. You do the RTK. Okay. I mean the rapid test. You will not get antigen positive. You may get antibody positive, but not antigen positive. Okay. And no, it will not enter your DNA. So you will not be mutant. So Malaysia is actually trying to get as much vaccine as possible. I mean, we've been promised that at the end of this month, we're going to get some Pfizer vaccine. And I hope that Pfizer will honor the promise to send us because we do need the vaccine. Okay. And I just want to close with a bit of Christian reflection. Okay. Remember Luke chapter 10, verse 25 to 27. Okay. Remember, this is the tale of the Good Samaritan. And it started by a young man asking Jesus, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus answered, summarizing all the Old Testament with teaching into love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your mind, soul, and with all your strength and with all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself. And he goes on to tell the story about the Good Samaritan. I'm sure you're all familiar with the story about this man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers, and he was lying on the road. And then a priest came along, okay, and a Levite came along, and nobody helped him except a Samaritan who came and helped him. Okay, and Jesus ended the story by asking the man, "Who is the neighbor? Help your neighbor. Who do you think is the neighbor to the man?" The scholar says, "It's the one who have mercy on him." And Jesus says, "Go and do likewise." So who is our neighbor? Okay. You find that the story actually have sacramental images of baptism, of anointing, of new life, of helping people, and life in Christ. So what are, as Christians, what should we do? I think it's important that we should pray. I think prayer is must in the treatment of COVID, in the treatment of our protection for our neighbor and ourselves. We need to pray. Okay, and that is a major thing that we need to do. We also need to do basic things like wearing masks, washing our hands, okay, practicing social distancing, okay, helping the poor, and quarantining ourselves when when you are needed to, and do real quarantine, not pseudo ones. These are the things that we can do, and I hope that we are doing that. Avoid crowded rooms where the ventilation is poor, because that will spread. Okay, so please, you want to protect yourself and you want to protect your neighbors, do all these things. And then vaccination. Okay. Vaccination protects you, but we find that what we call herd immunity. Vaccination also protect your neighbor. If about 70 to 80% of the population is vaccinated, okay, you find that studies have found that, you know, especially studies for rubella and measles, that if 70 to 80% of population is vaccinated, the other people who are not vaccinated may be protected. Okay. And even if they get infected, it may be a more milder form of the infection than severe form. And you find that the latest studies that comes that the people who spread the virus, okay, we used to blame it on children during the early part, during the when it was spreading in Italy and all that. We say that, oh, it's the children who bring it to the grandparents because all the elderly are dying. But now we find that it's actually the young people, the young adults, people between the age of 20 to 49 are the people who are spreading the virus. So you have to be careful, and hopefully, as the vaccine roll out, everybody get vaccinated. Okay, so that is what I want to say now, and I want to leave some time for question and answer. But it's important that we take to think carefully about the COVID vaccine. Okay. I'm sure there are a lot of questions, so I will end here. Okay. Important is for us to realize that vaccination is not only for us alone, but also for the community. So each of us have to make up our mind. God bless you.